Hello everyone, welcome to my video on the First Descendant. Now, before I get into the detail, I wanted to show you the performance on PS5. As you can see from the character on the screen, I've never seen so much judder when a character is running in a home hub. Ever. Even the beta was better than this, so I am very concerned about the state of the PS5 version of the game. Now, when I was doing this recording, I had also played the PS4 version, so I will be showing you the comparison to the PS4 version as well. The reason I wanted to include the PS5 version is A, to do that comparison, but B, to show you the issues with the game. So you've seen the stutter, and now you've seen the freezing. So this is literally live. Once we get back into the game, hopefully we'll see some of the actual gameplay and shooting. By this point I was extremely nervous because I didn't want it to just crash on me again. I've had 5 times where it's crashed to desktop and twice where it's just frozen and I've had to reset the game. Luckily it hasn't made me reset the console. So the environments don't look too bad. I do find it a little bit bland, if I'm being honest. I think there are much better looking games out there, and if you have a look, the blacks don't seem to be black, they seem to be a funny grey, almost inverse colour. So let's abandon the PS5 version here and switch to the PS4 version. Okay, so it doesn't look any different. Well, it looks a bit different. The lighting isn't quite so good and the textures aren't quite so good. But because I am playing this on a PS5, it is still in 4K. So it's not too dissimilar, which is nice, if I'm being honest. So let's get into what the game is actually like, apart from the problems with the PS5 version. Now, I must start this video. I was going to call it a review, but that's probably a little harsh as I haven't played too much. But I'm going to start this video by saying I'm not overly impressed. Now, I played the beta, the PS5 beta, and I had some concerns at the time about the amount of things there were to do. I wasn't overly fond on the way that the missions were structured, and the amount of loot, etc. that was dropped didn't really seem to... I don't know, it didn't really seem to do much for me. Now, I'm comparing this to Outriders and Anthem. Anthem being known for not dropping much loot. But even that seemed to have a better method of doing it, I think. Maybe that's just me looking at it with rose-tinted glasses, but it did seem to have a much better way. So let's skip this, this intro and get to some fighting. So here we go, mission started. Shooting wise it's not too bad. Some of the guns really don't explain what they do. We do pick up a load of things off the floor, so what I meant by the loot is it doesn't really give that satisfying noise when something drops. I haven't had anything really good drop so far, but I have had some purple items and they don't even make a different sound when they drop, so you kind of just see an icon for a gun and it's just a box on the floor. A bit like the Anthem diamonds that you get, which are again a little bit weird, but at least you do get some satisfying sounds when they drop. Now, at least in this starting section, the Vargas are generic, I'm gonna say. They're very generic looking, androidy, I would say. One of the good things about games like Anthem and Outriders is the enemies were kind of crazy looking, mainly because they were organic, I think. Whereas these things, like I say, they're very cyborgy, they're very just man with glowing point in chest. Not overly impressed so far with the character design. Again, that might just be because it's a starting area, so don't take that as everything's going to be the same throughout the entire game, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as at least from an initial standpoint, there's nothing making this game stand out. One thing I would say is it does have quite a nice traversal mechanic where you kind of have a grapple hook, which you can latch onto various different places. Now previously you had to look directly at the place you wanted to latch onto, whereas now you don't. The issue that I have is the icon for latching on is actually just a little red circle right in the center of your crosshair, I suppose, and sometimes it gets a little bit lost because it's not very big and it's red and quite dark red. It would have been nice if it was kind of like almost a luminescent red so you could see it easily. Gunplay is not too bad. I'm not going to say it's the best. I'm definitely not going to say it's the worst. I have played better shooters recently. But other than that, it's not bad at all. The specific abilities that your character has, I have only used Ajax so far. So I can't tell you what the abilities of the rest of the group are like, but Ajax's are very, very generic skills. So he is a defender and he has a static shield which basically gives a what's the word I'm looking for? Not ricochet, but basically it reflects, there we go, it reflects the enemy damage back to them, or a portion of that damage. You have a drop, so you do a jump drop and slam into the ground, creating an area of effect. You have a repulsing attack, where it just basically knocks everything back and causes stun. And then you have an all-over shield. All of which are, like I say, relatively generic for a defender class. I mean, that shield there, for instance, has been done better in Overwatch, of all things. But there we go. There are also shields like that in Outriders as well. The Devastator has one of those shields. So, as I say, there have been much better implementations of this type of game. That being said, the good things about this game, I would say, like I say, the gunfire, the gunplay is pretty nice. I'm struggling for anything else which is specifically good about this game. There are lots good about looter shooters in general. I think the matchmaking in this game is very, very good, because you literally just walk into a game. If you access a mission that somebody else is already on in your instance, you will teleport to them and join their version, so you don't have to matchmake as such. You can literally just drop into somebody else's mission. Once the mission finishes, the party disbands, which I think is a really good way of doing it. You can replay missions whenever you want, which I think is also very good. But there is a lot of walking in very empty areas between missions. Now, if I am carrying on my comparisons with Anthem and Outriders, Anthem had some very open areas, but it made them interesting by having a brilliant flying mechanic. Outriders also had some openish kind of areas, but it made them interesting by having some enemies in the area, so you will just have some creatures or something that were in the area. You also have quite a lot going on in the way of even in the desert area, by the way of environmental things, whereas this very much does look like a corridor shooter where you have a container placed where cover would be required. You have a rock in the middle. To me, it just gives the impression of it's been constructed and it's not an organic world. I'm possibly being overly harsh, but I do have a lot of games to compare this with. I mean, even Borderlands to some degree has very similar environments as this, and that is a very old game now. Even Borderlands 3 is 5 years old now, something along those lines, maybe even older. So yes, there are some things that this needs to do better. And the fact that it's a live service game will obviously make things a little bit better, because they can add things post-launch. And it was the same with Outriders and Anthem. Outriders obviously had expansions, etc. Anthem unfortunately didn't, but could have done so much better if it did have. Now, I've made a lot of comparisons between Anthem and this, and Outriders and this. The biggest one for me is the graphics, and I still think that Anthem is on par with this, and that is a last generation game. It wasn't even made for new generation consoles. This has been made for new generation consoles. I believe it was made for the new generation and then downscaled for the older generation rather than upscaled for the new, if that makes sense. So this should, in theory, be much better graphically, and unfortunately it isn't. That's very disappointing. Sound-wise, it's pretty decent, to be fair. I mean, sound design is always a little bit weird, but, you know, the footfalls are heavy. You've got some nice gunfire sounds. Pretty much everything sounds like you would expect it to. I can't remember whether I can hear ricocheting, as in the sound ricocheting off the wall or reverberating off the walls of the canyon. That did exist in Outriders, so it would be nice if it did exist in this. Unfortunately, doing my voiceover, I can't actually hear the sound in the background, which is unfortunate. But yeah, it would be nice if it did do that. Voice acting, I would say this is probably the worst looter-shooter voice acting I have seen. Possibly because it was made by a Korean developer, and obviously just got voice actors doing voice lines in a different tongue where it was originally written in Korean, so it might just be translation issues would have caused the problem, but it does sound very robotic, it does sound very broken, and doesn't give that lived in kind of feel to the world that I've mentioned a couple of times. Outriders, I think the voice acting was brilliant, and Anthem, I also think the voice acting was brilliant. Now, one thing that I should mention, especially as on screen at the moment you can see that there is a banner across the top, they have had a lot of problems. So if you have used any of the in-game currency, as in purchased any of the in-game currency, initially it was not showing at all. In fact, the PlayStation Plus pack that they offered, which gave you a few bonus items, has not worked. You cannot find it anywhere. And anything that you bought through the store originally, money or items, would not show up. So your money was basically gone. Now, it hadn't gone. The transaction had gone through, it's just there was a problem in the back end of the game that prevented it from showing within the game. That's pretty big for a launch of a free-to-play game where their only income is cash that you spend on in-game items in the shop. Now, it's telling that they fixed that within 6 hours of the release of the game, but the performance issues they can't fix, and it's because the shop is their income, so they had to get that fixed. That's probably a cynical way of looking at it, but unfortunately that's the way it's coming across. Fix the things that make us money, not necessarily the things that make the game playable. Anyway, I'm going to finish up by saying this is a missed opportunity in my opinion. The genre has been crying out for a new champion. I think Destiny still is the champion purely because it's been going so long. I don't necessarily think it is the best example of a looter shooter. I think Outriders and Anthem in their own rights had some things better. But longevity is definitely a thing, and Bungie have constantly been adding to Destiny. So this did have the opportunity to dethrone the king, and unfortunately, as it stands at the moment, at launch, this game does not have what it takes to beat Destiny in the looter shooter realm. In fact, in my opinion, and this may not be everyone's opinion, but in my opinion, both Anthem and Outriders are better than this game in most aspects. I would like to see both of those take a resurgence because of this game. I think Outriders specifically is a brilliant fun game. They fixed a lot of the issues, and unfortunately, as with a lot of this type of game, people just walked away rather than giving it another chance. I would say if you're looking for a looter shooter and this one isn't doing it for you like it doesn't do it for me, just jump back into Outriders. Yes, they might not be adding anything new to it now, but it's still brilliant fun. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I've been waffling on for long enough. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have found this useful. If you have, please make sure you do click that like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, or indeed if you haven't yet subscribed but you are returning. I have noticed that most of my viewers are not subscribed. I think it's about 96 point something% at the moment. So please make sure you do subscribe. It's really important, especially when trying to start the channel off. Any help that you can give would be great. Leave me a comment down below. Interactions with videos are also a prime indicator to YouTube that my channel is worth recommending. So please do leave a comment, even if it's just to say rubbish video. Look, honestly, if you don't like it, please tell me so I can do something about it. If you do like it, even better. But any comment is really, really well received. And yeah, just share the video with your friends. Let's get more people interested in what's going on with the channel. Well, thanks very much. I will see you in my next video really soon. You all take care. Bye for now.